I will be watching all the hearings, although I may not be able to watch all of it live, but I'll be sure that I'll be watching all of it. And I can assure you that the January 6th prosecutors are watching all the hearings as well. And we are proceeding with full urgency with respect, as I've said many times before, to hold all perpetrators who are criminally responsible for January 6th accountable, regardless of their level, their position, and regardless of whether they were present at the events of January 6th.
That promise from Attorney General Merrick Garland sounds different today. He made that promise as the hearings began earlier this month to follow the facts wherever they lead. But what does that mean after a day like yesterday? Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony about an unhinged, plate-throwing ex-president who knew about armed supporters and directed them to head to the Capitol anyway. A committee whose members have said they have enough credible evidence to refer him for indictment should they choose to do so. Meanwhile, new details are emerging about a man named Thomas Wyndham. He's the latest federal prosecutor who's been assigned to help lead DOJ's criminal investigation and obtain transcripts from the Select Committee. He's working under Attorney General Garland's close supervision. New York Times this week describes Wyndham this way: as a little-known but aggressive prosecutor who has been leading investigators who have been methodically seeking information, for example, about the roles played by some of Trump's top advisors, including Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, and John Eastman, with a mandate to go as high up the chain of command as the evidence warrants. Joining us now, after too long of an absence, our good friend Andrew Weissmann, former FBI general counsel, also a former senior member of Robert Mueller's investigation. Mike Schmidt is also here, New York Times Washington correspondent, also an MSNBC national security contributor. His byline is on that Wyndham reporting we just read from. Andrew Weissmann, I start with you. Let me take a step back. Tell me what you think and you know all the players very well, the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, who under normal circumstances, I know this isn't normal, would oversee investigations and prosecutions. What do you think their take on Cassidy Hutchinson as a witness was yesterday?
I think one of the things that we don't know is if the Department of Justice is really aggressively investigating. They actually already knew this. If they didn't, then if you listened to her testimony, there is an absolute goldmine of witnesses that you need to talk to. So to take an example from your last segment, everyone's talking about the fact that she testified, a low-level or relatively low-level staffer compared to the president and Mark Meadows and Pat Cipollone. But the Department of Justice has the ability to issue grand jury subpoenas and to force all of those people to testify. Pat Cipollone clearly isn't going to have a Fifth Amendment right to refuse to testify. And the department can put him and Secret Service agents into the grand jury and get the answers that we're all wondering about, which is a classic issue for the department, which is what happened. So you have a witness who says something. Well, you can put all the other witnesses in the grand jury and have them testify about what happened. Now, some of that may have happened already, although it doesn't, my bet is it hasn't. But I would think that if you are Merrick Garland and Lisa Monaco or the new principal deputy, Marshall Miller, you're sitting there taking notes about all of the people who have to be interviewed or put in the grand jury.
Let me just press you on this interesting divide you just articulated more clearly than anyone before. If they're investigating, they would know this already. Do you think there's any sort of race against time on the side of the congressional investigation out of concern that as DOJ catches up, if you will, some of these witnesses may suddenly be unavailable?
I think the race against time for the congressional investigation is the midterms, that they may no longer have the power to do this. And if the House flips, that the department's going to be playing defense, there are going to be hearings. But for the Justice Department, this is a question of needing to act with alacrity simply because there's a 4-year period and this is an incredibly important investigation. Lisa Monaco was definitely trained by Robert Mueller at the FBI and is used to acting quickly, and I think would be pressing that, as would Marshall Miller, the new PAYDAG, the number 2 to Lisa Monaco. So I think there will be some urgency, and we've seen that in connection with search warrants last week, but we haven't seen reports of urgency with respect to interviews and grand jury subpoenas. But I would think after yesterday's testimony, if the department did not know about that beforehand, and shame on them if they did not, but they should be pressing for all of the corroboration to make sure that what Ms. Hutchinson said is accurate and truthful, and obtain as much corroboration as possible.
Mike Schmidt, you and your colleagues have some new reporting about someone who will end up in the center of that, and that's Mr. Wyndham. Tell us what you guys are reporting.
Well, we set out to sort of write a profile of the latest investigator to walk into the ring to take on investigating Trump's world. And in the course of that, we talked to Peter Strzok, someone who comes on this show every once in a while, about what it's like to be that person. What is it like to investigate Trump? For a lack of a better way of describing it, there are a plethora of people who have had their reputation stained or their careers ended by investigating Trump. And at the beginning of all those investigations, they're all sort of depicted as the smartest, best prosecutors that the Justice Department has. But Trump, time and time again, was able to prevail in these investigations, and in many times landed significant blows, firing Jim Comey, having Andy McCabe fired. Just a few examples of what it's like when you try and investigate Trump and the consequences that have come with it. And Peter Strzok in our story giving a very stark warning to Mr. Wyndham, basically saying that, he thought he was doing the right thing when he was investigating Trump and his ties to Russia, and that would protect him, and that he didn't appreciate that there is a whole group of people out there that would be dedicated to going over every part of his life and basically trying to destroy it. And that's a pretty stark warning.
I mean, Andrew Weissmann, I remember when Donald Trump started attacking Robert Mueller, and I sort of worked in politics when Robert Mueller was untouchable, and I think in a lot of corners of the country he still is. But nothing is sacred. There is no bottom to the dirty political games Trump plays. And to Mike's point, after sort of playing legal Houdini, he seems emboldened every time. Do you think that weighs on the Justice Department's mind, that he has so far been above the law?
I don't think so. I think one thing I would add to Mike's litany, which is accurate, is that for many people, being attacked by a subject of a criminal investigation, and particularly in the way that the former president did, is frankly a badge of honor. It is not something that you really that it's a flesh wound at best. And one comment I would make is, one of the things that the former president is doing is exactly what he did during both impeachments, which is he issues tweets and he issues public statements. But if you remember, he was unwilling to either testify under oath in either impeachment or even submit a statement to Congress, because those carry with them the ability to be prosecuted criminally. So again, we're seeing the same thing. And one thing that if I were on the January 6th committee is I would say, you deny this, come on in and testify. The idea that the former president's being allowed to deny this, but not under oath. If there's Secret Service agents who want to deny what Ms. Hutchinson said, they should come in and testify under oath. And let's go right to the top. If the former president wants to deny this, he should come in and testify under oath like any other civilian.